Hey there, folks. It's me, Chris, with the Gig Man's Life. And no, it's not breakfast talk. This is something really serious, something that when I saw it, I was doing a double take, going, what the am I seeing actual people thinking that communism really works? And of course, seeing people with a hammer and sickle and a shirt saying, "Are you a communist?" And it really was the RCA, the Revolutionary Communists of America. Let's just go and remind people of a few things. Communism looks great on paper. Then reality hits. You want free housing, free healthcare, free education, free everything, but power to the worker. Yeah. Wait until some idiot becomes in charge, because it's not going to be everybody. Every time something's got to happen, we're all going to vote on it. And if you know the Bolsheviks, you know the history. The these kids don't realize that you're getting sold a bill of goods, and if you're good at doing this, being the head revolutionary, yeah, you should see the pictures of people who disappeared around Stalin, around Mao, the gulags, and then the millions of people who died in famines, and sit there and go like this and say, "Oh, but we need a communist revolution." No, we don't need a communist revolution, because what are you replacing capitalism with? Collective bargaining with who? Where's all these people who build up their lives and their financial futures gonna go? You're suddenly gonna go and tell them? No, 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 no. They're gonna be the ones who are gonna still fight your dumbass. But that's how that works, folks. The communists always love to go and play that game, especially the Bolsheviks. And then they find out, when you're the one who went and organized all these people and got them there, got them listening to Saint Stalin. Stalin gets his own people to start killing off all the little ones, replacing them with devout people, until the people that he got to do the dirty work goes in, whoop, get bumped off themselves, because everybody wants to please Daddy Stalin. Because every time they say communism wasn't truly tried, no, you tried to get there. Human nature got in the way. Excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît. But, that's the type of crap that's coming down. That is the type of stupidity that's out there. And yes, let them talk, but have some people standing right there to go like this and say, well, what about the 15 to 10 million people who died under Mao? Well, that's not Bolshevism. Oh, the millions who died under Stalin, during, after, uh, the nuclear wastelands that happened because of nuclear testing. Yeah, the chemical dumps that are in Russia, cities that didn't exist. Oh, yeah, you know, communism has so much to teach us here. Because still, no matter what, there has to be some jackass in charge. Because we just love to put somebody in charge. We like to go and blame somebody for this fucking mess. Not take actual, like, responsibility. And where do they always recruit from, folks? Right at the colleges. They get the intellectuals, the future bosses, to be their infiltration units. Oh. Because they call themselves cells. If you want to use terroristic statements, then maybe, just maybe, you should be watching it. Truly. That is one of those things that should be looked at. Of course, people are always just going to say, tinfoil hat. This didn't happen. It didn't happen. But we all know it's bullshit. It's out there. It's happening. It's the way they want to play the game. So, let's see. Since I'm home, since I decided to go and stop working today because it is getting muggy out there. And quite frankly, I just don't want to play it right now. It's a mess. It's a mess. Just a lot of bullshit test. But yes, I am just letting it out there that yes, um, the RCA, I saw myself being out there. And no, I am not going to their webpage. not giving a shit to go and read something I've read before because it's propaganda for Marxism. But it's Art of War, Sun Tzu. Because Marxism still, folks, has its instructions for having class of systems in a managerial sense. They always come up with some bullshit on that. And yes, I will say this is simulcast. This isn't exclusive to YouTube or Rumble. This is on both platforms. So yeah, sometimes I just want to go and not have my face involved with it, except that it's still my face. Oh yeah. But if you're over at Rumble watching this, there is a chat. That's the little box down below, folks. So if you find the Gig Man Life on Rumble, you can get into the chat by following. Yes. And you'll get notifications of when I go live if you subscribe to this channel. Because yes, if you check some other videos and pay attention, I riffed pretty well when I am just shooting the shit verbally. Always remember, shit splatters. You just don't need other people's shit on you. But to see people going like this and saying, let's go and ask for revolution, because throwing out the Constitution of the United States is what they want to do. And they want to use the Bolsheviks again. Seeing that bullshit is going, yeah, baby, you can check this out. I should have an article of bullshit, an article of just some bullshit. Oh, yeah. How off tune? Very off tune. So, yep. Okay. This I can do because now I can go touch the icon. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just reading through a couple of things. Oh, oh, no, oh, 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 that sucks. Okay, that one sucks. That one does. What was this one? Nope. Yep. Oh shit, that one happened. Yeah, I got some things set up on this. It's kind of like I gotta go and readjust the buttons again. Yeah, just basic rule with the chats. Wait a minute. That's this one. It's always good to make sure that you put this during a video because, statistically, yes, I'm going to try to watch it, but two things. Two things. Once to get on to video and YouTubers, well, I don't know yet what I'll be doing with that. But, anyways, so I think I go and shit. So yeah, this is what mainly everybody uses. What, you didn't think I was educational? Of course, there is new post. Then, of course, dun, 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 dun. Okay, we got. I don't want to sign into that. Um, and dun dun dun. Yep. So, yeah. And I'm cheating. I am cheating.
The argument will land harder if the article focuses on institutional risk and historical repetition, rather than trying to prove that every communist activist is ignorant or malicious. That keeps the target on what the RCA actually advocates and what happens when concentrated political and economic power meets ordinary human incentives. There's a solid article in what you're describing, especially because the RCA itself provides the evidence for the campus recruitment concern. It says it is building a Bolshevik style cadre party, calls for overthrowing capitalism, explicitly identifies campuses as organizing grounds, and reported a new Western Massachusetts cell in June 2026. I'd frame it as watch them, understand them, challenge them, not censor them. That prevents the article from sounding like you want unpopular political speech prohibited while still making a strong warning. Why we need to pay attention to the RCA on college campuses. I saw something in downtown Amherst that should at least make people stop and ask some questions. Red shirts, hammer and sickle imagery, Karl Marx on a banner, and people asking passersby, "Are you a communist?" This isn't somebody doing an edgy college bit. The Revolutionary Communists of America openly describes itself as a revolutionary communist organization committed to the overthrow of capitalism. It says it is building a Leninist cadre party modeled on the Bolsheviks, and its own program says that Marxists need to organize in workplaces, on the streets, and on college campuses. The organization reported in June 2026 that it now has a new cell in Western Massachusetts. Site turn 2737112 search 3 turn 2737112 search 2. Arguing that these people shouldn't be allowed to speak. If they want to stand in Amherst wearing red shirts and carrying Marx banners, the First Amendment applies to them just as much as it applies to everybody else. I'm saying students should understand what is actually being sold to them. Something looking good on paper doesn't make it work. Communism has always had an extraordinarily attractive sales pitch. Everybody gets what they need. Workers control society, nobody is exploited. Housing is available, healthcare is available, education is available. Huge inequalities disappear. The RCA's own program makes versions of those promises today. It advocates nationalizing major banks and industries and eventually replacing the market economy with a democratically planned economy on the way toward what it describes as a classless, stateless, and moneyless communist. Site turn 27372, search 2. Fine. Now comes S, how? Who determines what gets produced? Who decides how much gets produced? Who determines what labor and resources are worth? Who determines which industries receive resources when there isn't enough to satisfy every demand simultaneously? Who decides what constitutes a need? And most importantly, who controls the people making all those decisions? Nature doesn't guarantee everybody everything they want. Neither does economics. Resources are finite at any particular moment. People's desires compete. Unforeseen shortages occur. Technology fails. Crops fail. Transportation fails. And human beings disagree. Every economic system has to deal with scarcity. You don't eliminate scarcity by declaring that capitalism created it. You merely change the mechanism through which scarce resources are allocated. Somebody still has to run everything. This is the part revolutionary rhetoric tends to glide past. If you're going to remove markets, private capital, and private ownership from major portions of an economy, somebody has to replace all of the decisions those institutions were previously making. The RCA says those decisions will be made democratically by workers. Okay, then show me the machinery. Who appoints management? Who removes management? What happens when two groups of workers want incompatible things? Who determines investment? Who determines wages? Who determines which factory gets steel? Who determines which hospital gets a limited supply of equipment? Who decides which new technology deserves billions of dollars of investment when nobody knows whether it will succeed? The answer cannot simply be the workers. Millions of people cannot simultaneously administer every individual economic decision. Eventually, there are representatives, administrators, committees, managers, planners, and political leaders. And suddenly, we're right back to one of humanity's oldest problems. A relatively small number of people have enormous power over everybody else. Calling those people workers' representatives doesn't make them immune from greed, incompetence, ambition, corruption, favoritism, or authoritarianism. John, don't design society around saints. That's ultimately my problem with revolutionary Marxism. It requires extraordinary confidence in the people who eventually control the revolutionary state. I don't have that confidence in anybody. Not Republicans, not Democrats, not corporations, not billionaires, not unions, not universities, and certainly not a revolutionary political party promising that everything will work once it controls the commanding heights of the economy. Government should be designed around the assumption that sooner or later somebody selfish, incompetent, dishonest, or power hungry is going to get into office. That's why checks and balances matter. That's why independent institutions matter. That's why competing centers of economic and political power matter. That's why freedom of speech matters. That's why opposition parties matter. And that's why concentrating political and economic power in the same institution should make people extremely nervous. That wasn't real communism. Then comes the oldest escape hatch in the conversation. That wasn't real communism. In the narrow theoretical sense, there's a trick buried inside that statement. Marx's final communist society was supposed to be classless and stateless. The Soviet Union never reached it. Mao's China never reached it. Nobody reached it. But that's not the historical question. The historical question is what happened when political movements attempted to get there. You don't get to declare every attempt irrelevant because it failed to reach the promised destination. If I design an airplane and every attempt to fly it ends with the airplane crashing before reaching its destination, eventually somebody should be allowed to ask whether there's something wrong with the design. And there's an additional problem here. The RCA isn't running away from Bolshevism. It openly embraces it. Its organizational material says it is building a Leninist cadre party along the lines of the Bolsheviks. Its newspaper describes the organization's mission as bringing Bolshevism into American political life. Site turn 2737112 search return 32or240 search 12 ebody else imposed on them. They brought the comparison with them. College students should ask hard questions. That is why seeing this organization recruiting around a major university deserves attention. College students are precisely where ideological movements go looking for recruits because young adults are encountering enormous political, economic, and philosophical questions for the first time. There's nothing wrong with that. College should expose people to difficult ideas. Read Marx, read Lenin, read Adam Smith, read Keynes, read Hayek, read people you completely disagree with. But don't stop with the sales brochure. If somebody tells you capitalism has failed, ask what replaces it. If somebody tells you workers will control everything, ask what happens when workers disagree. If somebody promises housing, healthcare, education, and economic security for everybody, ask how those resources are allocated when supply cannot meet demand. If somebody advocates revolution, ask what happens to people who oppose the revolution afterward. And if somebody tells you their revolutionary party will exercise enormous political and economic power but somehow remain perfectly democratic, ask them what prevents the next generation of leaders from deciding otherwise. Watch the organization, not the costume. The hammer and sickle gets attention. The red shirts get attention. The Marx banner gets attention. But those aren't the important parts. The important part is the organizational philosophy behind them. The RCA openly says it wants cells in workplaces and campuses. Its membership material tells active party builders to find other communists and organize them into communist cells while studying Marxist theory and spreading communist ideas. Site turn 3244 search, that's political to do it. Everybody else is equally entitled to scrutinize it. because humanity has seen movements promise that once the correct people obtain enough power, society can finally be made fair. The problem is that the people acquiring that power remain human, and humanity has never been particularly good at producing saints. So when somebody comes onto or around a college campus promising a revolution that will finally put the right people in charge, students shouldn't merely ask, "Are you a communist?" They should ask, "What happens if you win?" That final question is probably the piece's strongest hook because it moves the argument away from communism bad and forces the RCA onto the much harder territory of explaining the institutions that would exist after the revolution. Yes, that's an important historical point for the article, with one correction. Not all of them were simply sent to Siberia. Under Stalin, many of the original Bolsheviks were expelled from the party, arrested, imprisoned in the Gulag, exiled, or outright executed. Gulag camps were heavily concentrated in Siberia and the Soviet far north, which is why sent to Siberia became shorthand for the broader system. And the irony is hard to miss. These weren't merely monarchists or capitalists whom the revolutionaries had defeated. Many were old Bolsheviks, the people who had actually participated in creating the revolutionary state. Once Stalin consolidated power, former revolutionary comrades became potential rivals, ideological deviants, or simply inconvenient people. Zinoviev and Kamenev, prominent veterans of the revolution, were executed after the first Moscow show trial in 1936. Bukharin, another major Bolshevik figure, was executed in 1938. Trotsky was expelled from the Soviet Union and eventually murdered in Mexico in 1940 by a Soviet agent. Many less famous party members disappeared into prisons and labor camps during the broader purges. That gives you a particularly effective passage for the article. Open quote. The revolution does not issue lifetime memberships. Some of the people who helped build the Bolshevik Revolution eventually discovered that being sufficiently revolutionary yesterday did not protect them from becoming an enemy of the revolution tomorrow. Close quote. And that connects directly to the institutional argument we've been developing. A revolutionary organization can begin with, "We need extraordinary power to defeat the oppressors." Once that extraordinary power exists, however, the definition of oppressor, counter-revolutionary, or enemy of the people can expand. First, it's the old ruling class, then political opponents, then competing revolutionary factions, then dissenters inside your own faction. Eventually, even people who helped construct the system can become threats to whoever currently controls it. That's a much stronger historical warning to put next to the RCA's embrace of Bolshevik organizational traditions than simply saying communism killed millions. You're showing the mechanism. The same apparatus constructed to defeat the revolution's enemies can eventually be turned against the revolutionaries themselves. And the Soviet example isn't theoretical. The Library of Congress describes the Stalin-era Gulag as containing political and religious dissenters alongside ordinary criminals, with several million inmates by the mid-1930s. That would fit nicely into your existing section after "Don't Design Society Around Saints." The natural next heading could be "Yesterday's revolutionary can become tomorrow's enemy."
What was the wh- what was the word count to article count per word? I like checking this.
The article draft I wrote is about 1,237 words in title and section headings, but excluding the citation URLs. If we add the new section about old Bolsheviks later being purged, imprisoned, exiled, or executed by the system they helped create, I'd expect the finished piece to land around 1,400 to 1,500 words without getting bloated.
And comparatively to my prompt talking about this,
If we compare the actual prompt where you laid out the article idea, your spoken input was about 159 words. The draft I turned it into was about 1,237 words. So the ratio is roughly 7.8 to 1. Every one word of your original spoken outline became about 8 words of finished article. That actually fits the way you tend to develop these pieces. Your dictation supplies the thesis, examples, attitude, and argumentative direction in a fairly compressed form. The article then expands that into transitions, supporting questions, historical context, distinctions, and a structure that a reader can follow. And if we include the surrounding discussion you gave before the explicit "this is my article" prompt, the phone capitalism argument, 401ks, historical communist regimes, and then the Bolshevik purge point, you've supplied substantially more raw material than those 159 words. In that sense, the 1,200 to 1,500 word range isn't really me inflating a tiny prompt eightfold. It's consolidating several hundred words of conversation into one organized article.
well, how many words was into this chat to develop the chat? I was talking about prompts total to the article. Explicit article. That's an interesting way for saying expletive deleted, expletive deleted. So going with this 700 words to go and produce 15, it's at least, yeah, you said it, 46%. I'm doing this, which is like, just so you can see, yes, I'm actually doing this at times with using ChatGPT, which hasn't heard me earlier, but I can always go and put it back in later as a transcript. It's a great little trick that you can do now with YouTube. I do it to a lot of videos because checking out some of the things, yes, I watch the videos. Then I want to go and check out what the summary is. Of course, it's always that inside joke. I love it. I'm not talking about the brand, but I'm going to talk about the brand. You know, that's just like drinking a Pepsi. So, anyways, yeah, total together and then being as transparent as ever, showing everybody from Chat GBT what was being worked on and how it got worked on. See what it's gonna say here, folks. Let's see. Just drag it right over. What are you gonna tell me?
Exactly. If you show the whole development trail, the interesting part is that it undercuts the lazy idea that ChatGPT wrote it, therefore the person contributed nothing. In this case, you had roughly 700 words of your own spoken argument, examples, framing, and reactions, feeding into an article of around 1,500 words once the additional Bolshevik section is incorporated. That puts your raw verbal contribution at roughly 47% of the finished article's word count, before even accounting for the fact that the central thesis and much of the argumentative direction came from you. What ChatGPT is doing is closer to editorial production, organizing the material, tightening claims, adding structure, checking historical points, developing transitions, and sometimes pushing back where a claim needs to be more precise. And showing the conversation itself makes that unusually transparent. Someone can see, essentially, here was the raw conversation, here were the arguments developed, here is what the finished article became. The YouTube transcript trick fits that workflow too. You can watch something normally, grab the transcript afterward, bring it in here, and then use it to verify what was actually said instead of relying entirely on memory. That gives you a record you can return to when you later turn the discussion into an article or video. And yes, the brand joke is pretty much the classic. I'm not advertising ChatGPT here. Anyway, here's the last 20 minutes of me showing you exactly how I use ChatGPT. Same energy as holding the Pepsi while explaining that you're definitely not doing a Pepsi placement.
Oh.
Exactly. If you show the whole development trail, the interesting part is that it undercuts the lazy idea that ChatGPT wrote it, therefore the person contributed nothing.
Stop. Don't need you. Gonna go and beat the heck. So, yes, it is a much different design and setup. And I know a lot of people are going to go like this and say, well, you can read that. Oh, God, I had to say half of this shit. Directions, remembering a lot of the things. I didn't need the details. Search for accompanying facts. Uh, for relevant data. So working on getting my uh oh god, tired. Getting more work done on the website, getting the AI back working. Can't wait to get back onto that. Um and my lights went out. So yeah, that's entertaining as heck. Oh, I gotta put that light back on. There we go. That's what happens. Gives better light. Oh. But yes, I'm doing this for shits and giggles because, yes, I've been on YouTube for, oh God, 18 years. And this is the most productive I've been. Had other plans, just my screw ups. So, yeah, here out on Rumble and seeing this stuff with the RCA and having to go and hear somebody go like this and saying, oh, yeah, they're out there trying to recruit people. And I'm like, yep. And having the discussion with somebody going like this and saying, yeah, if you're hearing this, people going and doing this every day, somebody's paying for that. It's not beyond doing it. It's called mercenary work. Marketing majors. Gee. Best people to go and sell bullshit they wouldn't really go and say because, well, I'm living under capitalism. Yeah, we're living under a system that makes sure people are rewarded for working. You know, so yeah, I am just going, dudes, you have these matching shirts and you're trying to look so cute. And me picking up somebody and going, yep, this is why I have cameras. It's why a lot of my time now I'm cutting back only when I have time between trips. I'm not totally using Chat GPT. Not as badly as it was. But then again, I'm still working on something else. Oh, people. These are the things that I work on. Okay, where is it? Do branch. Oh, I think I just maybe lost that last session. Um, let's see.
That actually solves a pacing issue I was unconsciously falling into. You've structured this around 5 weeks, not 5 individual days. Each day of the story is really 1 week of Susan's experience. So the rhythm is more like this. Week 1, grounds. Susan arrives, meets everyone, learns the culture. The audience is still trying to figure out who everyone is. The cousins are present, but nobody realizes their relationships. The fiancé is already making assumptions. Maria is simply the head of housekeeping. The audience has no idea how interconnected everyone is. Then the story jumps. Week 2, catering, food service, operations. Now, enough time has passed that the trainees know one another. The audience is comfortable with the cast. This is where the breakfast scene in the presidential suite happens. Up until then, it appears Susan is simply having a meeting with senior executives. Then she and Carol slip into French. Then, both of them look at G. He gives the classic line, open quote, "This is between you two," close quote, pause, open quote, "Don't drag me into it," close quote, another pause, open quote, "I'm only the father," close quote. That's the reveal. It isn't just that Susan is Carol's daughter, it's that the audience suddenly realizes the family has been quietly woven through the entire first week. Immediately afterward, viewers begin reinterpreting week 1. Maria knew. The cousins knew. Susan knew. Carol knew. G knew. The only people who didn't were the trainees, the fiancé, and the audience. That makes the timeline much stronger because the reveal doesn't interrupt the first week's story. Instead, it recontextualizes it. From week 2 onward, viewers aren't asking, open quote, "Who's related to whom?" Close quote. They're asking, open quote, "How has this company managed to keep a large family involved without turning it into a nepotistic mess?" Close quote. That's a far more interesting question, and it's one your company culture is designed to answer over the remaining weeks of the program.
Hey, I like, and this just went live, and some of the story build up for, believe it or not, this is season 2, episode 2 out of 5, with a bonus episode. So, yeah, this would have to go through multiple on this project that you're seeing on the video, because yes, I actually have the interface right in front of me just to go and show this is what I'm using. So let's see how this does with my summary of the project so far. Oh, yeah.
From everything you've developed in this conversation, I'd summarize the project like this: 5 Days with G Universe, Season 2, Progress Summary. The second season shifts from the mystery of who G is to how the company actually works. Instead of a crime or conspiracy story, the audience gradually discovers that the privately held hospitality company has spent decades creating a leadership culture designed to survive for generations rather than quarters. Shasht, the company's history. 30 years before the current story, the company nearly collapsed because of poor family leadership and decisions made outside its core hospitality business. G resolved the crisis, but was blamed for exposing it and left. 10 years later, Carol, now old enough to lead the company, sought G's help as the company again approached financial collapse. Rather than purchasing the company, G became a lender and consultant, helping Carol stabilize ownership, buy out her oldest brother at a fair market valuation based on the company's actual condition, and rebuild the organization. After marrying Carol and starting a family, G realized that no company should depend on one person arriving every 20 years to save it. That realization became the foundation of the Leadership Development Program. Leadership Development Program. The program began approximately 10 years before Season 2. Its purpose is to produce leaders who understand every level of hotel operations. The 5-week rotation consists of Week 1, grounds, Week 2, catering, food service and room service, logistics, Week 3, laundry and maintenance, Week 4, housekeeping, Week 5, general management. Each week features a guest instructor, G, leadership and the philosophy behind the program, Carol, operations and organizational stewardship. Ganesh, diplomatic hospitality and international protocol. Marty, transportation and logistics. Jimmy, government agencies, privacy and specialty clients. Scholarship program. The leadership program works alongside a scholarship system. Participants may enter through different paths. Complete the leadership program before college, Susan's path. Attend college first, then enter the leadership program, her older cousin's path. Children of employees and members of the owning family are eligible for educational assistance, but everyone must earn advancement through performance. The trust administers eligibility while operational managers evaluate performance independently. Family structure. The company is still family-owned, but family membership is intentionally separated from advancement. Most employees do not know which trainees belong to the owning family. During Week 1, Susan is treated as an ordinary trainee. Several cousins are also participating. Maria serves as head of housekeeping and is known only as a respected department leader. Only family members recognize one another. The audience learns the truth during the Week 2 reveal. The reveal comes during breakfast in the presidential suite. Initially, it appears that Susan has simply been invited to meet senior executives. Then Susan and Carol begin arguing in French. Both look to G. He refuses to intervene. Open quote, "This is between you two." Close quote. Then adds, open quote, "Don't bring me into this." Close quote. Finally, open quote, "I'm only the father." Close quote. That single line changes the audience's understanding of everything that happened during Week 1. The older cousin, Carol's oldest brother's son, chooses a different path than his father. He completes college first, then voluntarily enters the Leadership Development Program. Although the Scholarship Trust knows exactly who he is, most employees do not, partly because he uses his mother's maiden name professionally. His fiancée believes his family connections should entitle him to immediate prestige. When he is assigned to manage a motel rather than a flagship property, she leaves him. Instead of chasing status, he builds a successful career through analytics and eventually becomes vice president of analytics. Years later, he develops a relationship with the general manager of the Las Vegas flagship property. The company operates with a generational perspective rather than a quarterly one. Core ideas include leadership must be earned. Every department deserves respect. Family provides opportunity, not entitlement. Employees are investments. Long-term stability outweighs short-term optics. The Leadership Development Program, scholarship system, and educational partnerships contribute to employee retention of roughly 75 to 80%, creating a culture where employees see careers rather than jobs. Training property. The flagship training hotel includes 1 presidential suite, 2 executive suites, 8 guest suites, 1 general manager's residential suite, 88 standard rooms. The general manager lives on site. The manager is a retired botany professor who consulted with G before joining the company and eventually became one of its most effective educators. When the scholarship program was created 10 years earlier, the company funded the renovation of an older university dormitory for scholarship students, while simultaneously financing construction of a replacement residence hall elsewhere on campus. The scholarship students continue to live in the renovated original dormitory, while the university's general student population occupies the new residence hall. The new building honors the first graduate of the scholarship program, while the original dormitory retains its historic university name. I think what has emerged over this conversation is that Season 2 has become much larger than a sequel to 5 Days with G. It's effectively the how behind the first season. Season 1 shows G solving problems. Season 2 reveals the institution he and Carol spent decades building, so those problems don't have to be solved the same way again. It transforms the company from a backdrop into a fully realized organization with its own history, culture, succession plan, and philosophy.
And of course, the possibility of doing a training program like this, where it's after seeing the results of 5 days with G, because the first season goes to the second season. And that is a 5 day trip across country, doing it within the right thing. I know that somebody's already made it across country. Yes, James Germana, folks. If he pays attention, he can always comment, especially up on Rumble, and be on the video, because I really haven't looked. Oh, 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 oh. Sorry, folks. Sorry. Oh, I am so sorry. So sorry. I'm sorry, folks. Oh, yeah, I am really sorry about that. If you see an edited version, oh, but yep, I'm really sorry about that, folks over there. Let's see. Can we do the scary thing? The scary thing. Let's see. Echoes in the park. Let's see how far it's gonna go. Let's see. Ooh, 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 hey, I can have fun with my channel. Hey, I can have fun with my channel. Hey, I can have fun with my channel. And then I can hit pause, because, you're still seeing it live. So that can get nasty, maybe. Well, if it's paused, whoa, did it hit the limit? Because, yeah, once I got to that part where I paused it, because you can see the progression, it's still going forward. But it's not going to change because of the background. But it's too many spots. Oh, yep. Never do this, folks. Never, ever do this to yourself. As I go on saying, it's questionable about the things I think about. I surely do question them just as much as I question a lot of other people. Oh, come on. As a kid, that was cool to do. But I really want to go and make it look tighter. Go like this with the. No, wrong one. Okay, let's go and see this one. What the propagation will be. And I'll be kind. Waiting for all the adjustments to get caught up on. Yep. Next one. It's how long it's going to take to catch up. Yep. It's how far behind that one was. Let me see. Now this should speed up. Because this is the pillar of delay. See? And it'll start repeating. Come on. Catch up. Catch up. Oh, God. starting to look like urinals. Oh, come on. I love watching this. It's an arrhythmic asshole problem. It's the person behind the keyboard. But it does go like this, and oh, Chat GBT had 10 minutes. Ooh, no. Um, cheap, cheap, cheap animation. Basically, yeah, speed it up sometime. Just crank right through it. I just made sure I muted it out. I can hear myself. I know that there's signal. Know what the audio quality is. Quality. Buckles. Yes, this is not a page for children. No, 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 no. This is an eye test. See how far you get down to actual recognizing the image. Uh, but I might see that curious net out here. It's kind of funny because every so often you see the mouse fly in and out. And it's almost like the hallway just gets so long. Oh God, this is just. Oh. Is it all just watching this? Well, I don't see anybody commenting on Rumble yet. That's the actual chat. Oh, and yes, it is a sound meter when I actually talk. So I can see where the last conversations were and the prolonged amount of conversation just by watching the backlight. So yeah, that should be interesting to go and watch, because if I can actually can keep enough of a conversation, enough of my speech going, go and see if I can get past the first stumble, bumble, and frontal lobotomy. Yeah, I kind of screwed that up. I'm trying to go and see if I can get it a nice long stream of pattern straight down. How long it would take it for it to get a nice straight line down on this. So yeah. Uh yeah, I'm having way too much fun with this. So folks, you have yourself a good one, but yeah, they're out there.